What's going on, everybody? It's Childish. We're back at it again with the next episode of Educate and Dominate, the one-on-one interview series where we take some of the top names in the game and get their insights so we can bring your game to the next level. My next guest is a legend rank player on the global side representing the guild Malicious. We have ourselves Chuffles. How are we doing today, sir?
Pretty good. Hey, you got it.
Yeah, I got
You got it.
I
Nice.
got it, man. I got that
Oh,
intro.
perfect.
There you
I'm
go.
good. I'm
Yeah.
good. Thanks for having me, dude.
Yeah,
Thanks.
anytime, anytime. So for all of you guys that are new to the channel, welcome to the channel. With regards to Educate and Dominate, it has come a long way over the last 18 months. And if you guys remember from the very first few episodes, what really brought it into the mix is bringing some of those top end players to focus on the PvP aspect. As you guys know, PvP is endgame, and we definitely had to bring one of our latest and greatest legends out there, Mr.
So
Chuffles. Now,
flattering.
flatter, right? No. So, but real talk though, real talk. Honestly, I've been really, I'm super excited that 2 weeks ago you hit that ledger break because it just goes to show that regardless of who you are, what you are, anybody and everybody can come together, create a specific strategy, a tactic, and can get
Right.
that legend rank at the end of the day. So congratulations to you on that legend rank.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Not a
Much
problem.
appreciated.
For sure, for sure. And so, before we get into all this stuff with regards to Arena, let's take it a step back as always, and let's introduce you to that community. I know you as the Twitch streamer, but some people don't even know how you even got involved when it comes to Summoners War. So, what led you into like video gaming in general? Then, what brought your way into
Um,
Summoners War?
well, I've played like video games my whole life, but it was mostly like console or online games. Like when I was a kid, I played like RuneScape or whatever. But then a few years back, I think it was in the summer of 2015, I was working at a job, and my coworkers were playing Summoners War. And up until that point, I was like, mobile games are stupid, right? Because it's like
Right?
when you play a mobile game, you lose your phone. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that doesn't make sense. But then they kept pestering me to try it. I was like, fine. And I don't know, maybe it was like the gambling aspect of like summoning or something, but it was like super addictive, and that's the story.
Right, right, right. So getting into the game, like everybody gets in and they start to playing and they get the addition. What really motivated you to be like, you know what, I want to turn it up a notch. I really want to see how I can contend, like in the PvP rank.
Well, traditionally in most games I play, I tend to get pretty competitive. Um, so I wouldn't say this is like particularly different. I just enjoy the fact that there is a PvP aspect in this mobile game instead of just having it be as like a single player source of entertainment kind of thing. So,
Gotcha. Right on, right on. Well, let's move into the meat and potatoes of it all. When it comes
all right.
to arena, right? When it comes to arena, one of the things that we definitely tell people coming up in the ranks, when it comes to arena offense versus arena defense, the big thing to focus on is the AO and like the AO meta. So, can you tell me a little bit about the AO meta as it stands today? What's your take on it? And what are like some of the popular teams that people be using?
Right. Okay, so I agree with you. Yep, I think in general, AO meta kind of determines arena meta, right? Because if there's a certain AO that is like very popular, defenses will have to adapt to that teams. So right now, currently, I think there's three types of teams that are probably the best, right? So you have your classic cleave team, which is just your wheeled shield, your galleon, your three other dudes. Sometimes it could be like one DPS, like Alicia, Huadam kind of thing. Um, and that's kind of your stable team for against defenses that don't really have a stripper, or if you have like high resist on your cleanser, if you want to use that one.
Right.
Those That's a really solid one. You have your Tiana teams. So when I say Tiana teams, I mean primarily Tiana Bomber, right? Which is with like Sierra Libli, the classic like, ooh, that's the best AO kind of thing.
Right.
And you have your Tiana like Galleon teams, so Tiana Zyros, Tiana Alicia. And the third team is obviously Lucian, right? And Lucian
Right.
variants. So it's not just double Lucian, it's like speed lead Lucian. I know Vayne Solidor from EU, he uses like Kabila and a really slow Lucian with that Tion. So that's also a Lucian variant. And I think those three are kind of the pinnacle of AO right now. Those are the ones you want to aim for.
Gotcha. When it comes to those three, arenas for me, I feel like that bomb one. being able to essentially, ignore the offense and not really worry about
Right.
the elemental what is kind of one of the strongest in my humble opinion. What's your take out of the three ones that you feel like is the top one out of those three? If
Well,
there is one, if there is one.
I think, to be honest, right now, I think they're all pretty balanced in terms of how popular they are and what they can hit, right? So I think classically people assume that the Tiana Bomber one is like, oh my God, this is the most overpowered thing. How is this fair? Like, there's no way you can ever build a better AO than this. But like, that's not true because there's a lot of things that like can go wrong in a bomb team. There's a lot of like monsters that they don't like to hit. One of them being Freya, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
All right.
If you ever watched like some YouTubers like who film their rush hour, right? Who use the bomb team, you'll have to notice how many teams they skip and how long the AOs take. So I definitely don't think that that one is the most overpowered. Um, if anything, like with the Water Fairy King meta, well, I wouldn't even say that there's a meta revolving Water Fairy King right now, but I think the best AO against them, so because they're so popular, it might just be the best AO right now, would probably be a variant of Lucian.
Gotcha, and it's a great thing to point out because when we think about the people that are kind of climbing up in the ranks, if they're fortunate enough to get some of the high end units, they have a little bit more variety to work with. But
Right.
for some of the common units out there, it has been shown that you can legitimately push with a devolution comp for up there if you really don't if you really choose to do so. I think Burke is a great example of this. Constantly being at G3 rank and one of his favorite teams, if not the only team. Shout out to Burke one time. He likes to use is that devolution combo. Now, when it comes to some of the beginner players that we're going to be focusing on right here, what are some of the things that they should be aiming towards when they're trying to create that AO? What do you think?
Okay, well, as a newer player, obviously you can't expect to pull a Tiana, right? You can't expect to pull a Zyros. You can't expect to pull these like premium units. But you can kind of set your expectations a little lower and be like, okay, I think one day, I'll pull a Galleon. Sorry to all those people who don't have Galleon yet, but
Right.
for the most part, you can be like, okay, one day I'll pull Galleon, or one day I'll pull two Lucians. So you can kind of gear your progression towards that if you're gonna go for PvP, right? So you're gonna farm your will runes, you're gonna farm your shield runes, and you can make your standard cleave team, or you can farm your swift runes, you can farm your fatal blade runes or whatever, and you can make your double Lucian team. So those are the ones that I would kind of try to progress towards because generally those runes will transfer anyways if you do pull your Tiana, right? So that's my take on it.
Gotcha. And then when it comes to some of these AOs that we're talking about, a lot of people out there just say, "Oh, I seen this person, use this comp, and they bum rush it into this defense and this defense when they don't completely understand like what this composition can actually be." So when it comes to those three different ones you were talking about earlier, the cleave teams, the Tiana-based bomb teams, solution teams, what are some of the monsters that they should be looking to consider choosing? When they're looking to attack those people, what kind of teams should they be going after?
Well, I guess I'll start with the easiest one, which is Lucian, right? So Lucian has very obvious strengths,
Mm-hmm.
right? The fact that he ignores defense is actually like it's crazy. But being wind, he struggles against heavy fire, right? So that's
Right.
the first thing you want to avoid is like something like you're not gonna Lucian like double Rakan, that's just like not gonna happen. Um, but other things that Lucian users tend to think twice about, your aerials, your Prahas, the Nemesis units that can cut in.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the two big no-nos for Lucian users. Because if you can't kill everything with your 2 amps, and you're gonna have a bad time, to say the least, right? Especially if they can like counterattack, right? If there's a Kumar that's still alive, there's a Rakan that's still alive, there's like a chance for you to lose.
Right.
For cleave teams, I think cleave teams actually have a big amount of leeway because you can kind of craft it to be even good against like because traditionally, right, cleave teams because they use will shield, it's like if they attack into a stripper team, right, then there's a chance they might get stunned. There's a chance they're going to be CC'd. But nowadays, a lot of people are using a cleanser in their cleave team, a cleanser with really high resist. For example, like Annabelle. I don't know if anyone's using Lisa that I know, but Lisa's definitely an option. So that even if they get stunned, chances are the cleanser's not going to get stunned, and they can still counterattack on turn two. So, but in terms of monsters that actually kind of mess them up, it's the stripper followed by really heavy CC or really heavy damage, right? So, for example, stripper plus Water Fairy King, stripper plus I don't know, like Lucian, for example. You know, if someone pairs like a really fast speed lead with a Lucian, then it's not wise to bring in just your four-man will, because there is a chance that they're all going to die to the Lucian. Not that putting a Lucian on defense would be a good idea, but it's just an example, right?
Right.
Tiana teams actually probably have the least amount to worry about just because of the nature of Tiana, but that doesn't mean that it's like home free, because a lot of these units, they will be up on the Guardian defenses, right? Because specifically to counter Tiana. So a good one would be Amduat, right? Amduat has a chance to AoE stun. His AI is kind of bad, but regardless, like he has a chance to AoE stun the Tiana team after the Tiana cleanses. Freya can be trouble for Tiana teams if Tiana can't kill everybody else, but can kill the Freya. Fire Lich, which I've tried a few times, can be annoying for Tiana teams, but his proc rate's pretty low.
Right.
I would say those three are probably the big ones. Oh, no, sorry, Water Fairy King.
Water Fairy King,
If
right.
you don't use Zyros and you let Water Fairy King revive, there's a good chance that, like, on his death passive or whatever, the move, it'll stun your second AoE, and that can be really annoying. So I think that's why a lot of Tiana users are having trouble with Water Fairy King.
Gotcha. Cool. And then let me ask you this question too, because I've seen this a little bit here and there for some people that have showcased devolution comps. When we think about devolutions and what we can do to counter it, generally speaking, we hype up our defense when it comes to fire. But I think that there still is certain compositions that some people still place a gamble with. You know, some people see these couple of fire units and they're like, you know what, I still think I can just kind of face roll through it. You know, what's your take on that? Do you think it's smart, or is there certain fire units out there that doesn't scare you if you were using the devolution comp versus some that are like, whoa, I see that unit, I'm not even going to try to mess with it? What do you think?
Okay, personally, I would devolution any team that only has like one fire. It doesn't matter what the fire unit is, if it's Rakan, if it's Kumar, I feel comfortable devolutioning it. But as soon as there's like two or like a really strong fire unit like Rakan plus some kind of other deterrent, then I'll be like, no way, this is not for me. Because as soon as your success rate drops below like 90, which is my guess, even if you hit these kind of teams, it's going to be that anyways. But if it drops below then you're not having a consistent AO, and it's just a risk to fight.
Right. And it seems like people have shown, different influencers, top end players have showcased that if you mess up one or two like fights or on the AO side, you could drop down. Like for me, I don't rush, but I've tried it a couple times, and I remember that competitive like Guardian 1 rank, like I was sitting there, 189, lost one match, and I was down to 500. I'm like, really? Like, talk about rage quitting.
Yeah.
10 minutes into 10 minutes left to go. I was like, why even try anymore? I literally lost 400 points. It's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
That's just what it is, right? I think especially it's like really bad in Guardian 1. I think Guardian 1's probably like, for me, what I remember when I was like in Guardian 1, that was definitely the biggest hurdle, because there's so many players in Conqueror 3 and like low Guardian 1 that are trying to secure their spot, that there's just a very high volume of attacks going through. So as soon as you mess something up, you're probably screwed.
Right. Right,
right?
yeah. Let me ask you this. So we're going to be talking about a little bit of arena like defense, obviously, because that's a crucial part in this. But
Right.
when it comes to the AO side, we don't only have the top end players that are in the Guardian trying to push forward in the Guardian ranks, but we do have some newer players that are getting into the scene. Do you have like a take home message or any kind of advice that you would recommend to people that are trying to break away from that PVE and starting to work into that PvP when it comes to like their arena and focus on?
Um, well, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to runes, right?
Hmm.
Sure, you can get the premium monsters, which will definitely make it easy. I'm
Right.
not gonna lie. Like if you pull your Water Fairy King, your Tiana, you're gonna have an easier time than someone who just has their Bernard and their Lucians because of how much more difficult it is to rune. But I would for newer players who are trying to get into the PvP, so maybe like you're trying to break into Conqueror, you're trying to break into maybe Guardian. Well, those aren't super new players, but I would say focus on your runes and let the PvP come, right? Because as your runes get better, your defense win rate will increase just naturally, and your arena offense win rate will also not only increase but become faster.
Gotcha. Right on. I appreciate that. Thank you. So let's move on to the 80 and just start right from the get go. 80 meta. It's changed quite a few times over the course of the last 3 to 6 months that I've changed it. But what's your take on it right now? What do you think? What do you think it's all set up right now? What do you think?
I actually really like AD meta right now. I think this might be controversial to say, but I think it's pretty balanced. Um, there's a healthy amount of everything right now at the higher level. I'm not sure what it's like maybe in like Conqueror, but for the most part, Staal isn't like rampant. Water Fairy King isn't rampant anymore either because of the prevalence of Lucians,
Right.
right?
Okay.
So I think for, like every week, there's people are innovating more and more. They're trying to come up with more and more original strategies. Like for example, last week KB, I think that's how you say his name. He got Legend, and
Hmm.
he used Triana, right?
Hmm.
Triana is a no one's seen Triana before. Like very few people use her, but it's interesting that it gets Legend because of its novelty factor, right? People don't know how to deal with it. It's not part of your cookie cutter AD. Like it's not like oh my god, it's Arena. Everyone knows how to deal with Arena already by now.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's not about making something that everyone's already made. It's about being innovative and putting your own ideas into fruition.
Yeah. It's a great way to put it out there. And I'm actually going to show kind of embarrass myself since I generally finish in the Conquer 2 ranks.
Sure.
Um, and it never happens. But after I pulled Vanessa, I mean, this had to be over a year ago. But after I pulled Vanessa, we started seeing a lot of. I created, not like me, like starting it off. I'm sure somebody already had the idea, but I did. Basically, just kind of an RNG kind of Theo approach where I just set up a defense that hoped that Theo would go ham and wreck.
Right.
I went Vanessa, Orion, Theo, just soon.
Right.
And I kid you not, this my best rank ever was the first week that I put it in there, when a lot of people weren't using this kind of a setup. And I finished rank 101 without. I mean, I went to bed 4 hours before it reset. Like it was ridiculous. I didn't even know it was possible for me to get wins on defense,
Right.
especially with people seeing my name and like, oh, let me smack the crap out of them. I don't like that guy or his videos, right? So I'm like, I couldn't even believe it. But it just kind of goes to show you guys that like he said, like Shuffle said, being innovative, being providing something out there that people don't normally see, that's definitely the way to go. And funny enough, next week after that, I did the same thing where I'm like, oh well, I got to keep the same defense, right? Let's see if it works.
Right.
It did not. I was out of the Guardian rank, and I think I hit something like 310 or 320, like not at, decent, but still not even remotely close. And it wasn't any change in the legend rank, so it wasn't like people are going after or whatever. It's still kind of like a crappy rank, whatever. So
Right. You bring up a really good point because I think that you can definitely see that trend everywhere, right? So, for example, OMG Bomber, right? He got Praha 2 weeks later, he got Legend, but he was never as close to that success again. And I think partially that has to do with the fact that Praha at the time was this very, very scary unit. Just like kind of how Water Fairy King a few months ago was this very, very scary unit. People didn't know how to deal with it, and it's that novelty that brings the extra oomph to an AD,
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really important in AD construction, having novelty and having something that people don't know how to deal with. So you said Orion, Theo, Vanessa, Chisoon, which I assume most people at this point will be like, "What? I see that 80 all the time, man. That's like,
Right.
oh, that's like my average day in Comp 1." But you gotta remember, like a year ago, that was not the case. So shout outs to you for crafting that.
Let's get it out there on camera. I did not crack that.
All
I think
right, well,
I think I started to happen to use it when people were using either uh, Vanessa Bernard Theo Jasoon or Vanessa Orion. It just
right,
a lot of Vanessa Orion XX. You know, it's like
yeah,
so. I mean, like I said, I just have those were my best units, my best rune units. So I threw it in there. You know, after I got Vanessa and it did good. So yeah.
right.
So let's see here. When it comes to the arena defense, right? We talked a little bit about these different types of 80s or whatnot here. You know, one thing that I think people, you know, forget to understand is regardless of what 80 is put out there, there essentially is a counter. There's not really one, you know, 80 out there that isn't counterable. It just kind of comes down to the unique, innovative creation that you were
Yeah.
talking about to do it. So when it comes to those, what's your take on the ADs and maybe some of those common ADs you're seeing, and what are the ways that you choose to counter them?
Well, personally, I don't have as many options as I would like. So, for example, I don't have Tiana, right? So Tiana kind of limits the way I can hit certain ADs. So, but in general, stall defenses, they're they get absolutely obliterated by monsters like Teor, Tashar, but they do well against Lucians, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because okay, obviously the Lucian team will win, but it's a matter of how long it takes the Lucian team to win,
Mm-hmm.
and that changes everything. Because even against something like double Rena, it can take the Lucian team like maybe slightly over a minute, whereas it could take the Tiana Teor team maybe like 25 seconds, which is huge in the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
So the best way to hit stall, I think, is with a Tiana team, and not with Tiana Bomber, probably with like Tiana and very heavy single target nuke. Um, what else is there? Speed teams. Okay, speed teams are pretty good against Tiana teams. I'd say just because Tiana's generally kind of slow. Well, she's not like super slow, but she's slower than Orion. She's slower than Bernard. So for the most part, the speed team is gonna move first. When I say speed team, I mean like Water Fairy King plus like attack bar booster plus like shenanigans. So Tiana teams, um, I wouldn't say they particularly struggle, but they don't have as easy of a time as, say, a obnoxiously ruined Lucian team, which can just destroy the entire team in one get go. Um, the best defenses, in my opinion, are those mid range kind of utility based defenses.
Mm-hmm.
It's where you have like your Sekhmets, your a Nemesis healer, plus whatever else CC you can bring, those kind of units. Because while they don't particularly excel against a certain AO, they are very good at not only one being novel, like chances are there's like unit compositions that you haven't seen. Whereas, for example, like stall defenses, every stall defense kind of looks the same. You got arena in there, you got some sort
Right.
of healer. Most Water Fairy King defenses look pretty much the same. It's Water Fairy King, Orion, Striver, +1. But the ones that are cool are the mid range defenses. So anytime you bring something interesting, like I've said, you gain an advantage just by being different.
Gotcha.
So those defenses, I think Tiana has the best time against them, but it's definitely not easy because if you bring like Sekhmet does well against Tiana if she stuns or if she resets Tiana, which sometimes she doesn't because her AI sucks. But it's that factor of RNG, the factor of oh you might lose, that makes everything work together.
Gotcha. You know, one of the things that you mentioned early on is talking about not just the way how you clear it, but the speed how you clear it. You know,
Right.
time and again, we see people contact you or myself or whatever. Like, how do I get a higher rank or whatnot? And it comes down to some of the mistakes that people make, and of course, you know what kind of improvements that we can make based on those mistakes. When it comes to the general like rush hour mistakes, what are some of like the top things that people ask you about? What are some of the top things that people have a hard time grasping and allowing them to move forward with their progression?
Um, Okay, well, rushing is something that probably almost every player can do better at.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, rushing is what determines your rank, right? At the end of the week. So I would say if you get better at rushing, then you'll get better at ranking higher. So what I mean by that is like I think there's like a general set of mistakes that people tend to make. And I guess I'll go over some of them. So um okay, for the first and foremost, I think people revenge too much.
Hmm.
I think ideally you don't want to revenge at all. I think revenging is like awful in terms of ranking up. Because let's say you are let's say you're in like Guardian 2 or whatever, right?
Hmm.
And you have your Staal defense up and you get hit by this random, okay? Doesn't matter who it is. You look at their defense and you're like, "Oh, I can clear that pretty fast." So you clear it and then you get like 7 points because chances are they were lower ranked than you to begin with. So you get your 7 points, and then they hit you back and you lose another 14. So right there you've lost like 20 points just by hitting them back because you've let them attack you again. So not only that, this player who has hit you has demonstrated that they can and they will clear your AD. So anytime you revenge someone, you're opening up the door for them to hit you again. And if they were lower ranked than you, that's just more point loss from your end. Because you don't, okay, unless you're for sure certain that they're above ranked than you, then I would say never ever revenge in rush hour. I think it's a really bad idea.
Gotcha.
Um, to elaborate on that, also what you need to do is you can't hit people at the top of your list. Hitting people at the top of your list is really really slow, regardless of how easy their AD is. It's slow because the amount of points that they give you per win is very very small. I remember like sometimes I would hit the person at the top of my list and I get like 5 points, whereas if I hit the person at the bottom of my list, I get 13. So even if the bottom of your list takes you twice as long to clear, it's still worth it. And that's not even considering like if the top person at the top of your list revenges you, then you actually lose like 14 points. So that's really bad as well.
Gotcha. And how about those wings though? How about what's the issue when it comes to wings and people utilizing them? Do you feel like there's any kind of inefficiency in that aspect?
Yeah. So I think what people try to do is, well, not everybody, but some people try to clear their entire list to get those +2 wings, which is overall, yeah, that's a great strategy if you're farming glory, but that's not something you should do in rush hour because, again, hitting people at the top of your list, not good. Opening up yourself up to attacks, also not good. You want to stay limited to the bottom of your list, even if it's not as efficient as you would be farming in midweek. It's just better for point gain.
Gotcha. Right on. Let me see here. And so, with regards to like the ADs and focusing on them, do you feel like people stick around the AD aspect and focus on it too much, or what do you think?
Yeah, for sure, actually, because think about all the times you're on like Summoners War Reddit or whatever. You're in like you're talking to your guildies, and they're like, "Oh, can you help me make an AD?" Or, "Hey, what AD would work best for like Comp 2 or whatever?" But no one ever says, "Hey, how do I make my AO better?
Right.
How do I clear people faster?" Because at the end of the day, that's what really changes everything. If you can get your AO clear time from 40 seconds to 20 seconds, you're getting double your fights in.
Right.
So I think in general, people should focus not like to neglect their AD, but
Right.
they should focus not so heavily on their AD and try to think about how can I optimize my AO a little better.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say that, I mean it's not like oh just farm better runes kind of thing, but it's more like how can I expand the options of my AO? How do I prevent myself from being limited to only being able to hit certain teams, even if it's not like okay, so as an example, if you have your double Lucian team,
Right.
one of the things that, well, I'd like to say that I like kind of innovated this, but I don't know. Someone's probably done it before me. So what I did was instead of like using double Lucian, I would use something like Julie Lucian, right? Because the idea is that when you're using double Lucian and you tack into a Praha, for example, the Praha will cut after your first Lucian if they're on like double Nemesis or triple Nemesis, and then your second Lucian can't kill anything. So the idea of using Julie is that Julie can soften up the Praha, and she doesn't proc Nemesis, right? Because her third skill hits like 6 times, and all the hits are really small. She doesn't proc Nemesis, and then it allows your second Lucian to move without Praha interrupting to kill their whole team. Now, what? So when I did this, it literally expanded my AO repertoire so much because it enabled me to hit so many more teams that I otherwise wouldn't be able to hit. And it's things like this, like small changes that you can think of that you can make that'll like change your AO
Right.
to just let you hit more people, to let you hit faster. And that's what really makes a big difference.
That and if there's one thing that people are going to take away from this like video, that is extremely strong. I mean, the concept of Nemesis and utilizing units that can provide a lot of DPS, but with smaller hits, so that the Nemesis aspect doesn't proc, is pretty darn unique. I like that. That's really cool. Now, let me ask you this, because this is kind of like a curveball question. The concept of effective HP, it's definitely out there with the inception of the Rift of Worlds, R5s, and all this good stuff.
Yeah.
We're now getting the grindstones and enchantments to really round out our stats when it comes to these units here. Of course, when it comes to ignoring defense type of units like Lucian, there's not too much we can do to counter that aspect. Beside the bringing the fire units and whatnot. When it comes to other compositions that you see time and time and again in the top 30 ranks or whatnot, where's the like how do you find the blend? Like when I think about the AD and the Nemesis runes and whatnot, it's an extremely powerful subset, but if you have that effective HP, if you have that high defense in addition to the high hit points, if you're going to be able to mitigate more damage, doesn't the mitigate factor kind of take away from the value of Nemesis? Does that make sense?
I see what you're getting at. So you're saying that Nemesis runes are generally considered to be like, this is what you need, but a lot of people don't take a look into the fact that you could also just make your units like tankier to sort of achieve the same effect.
Mm-hmm.
So what I think is optimal is pretty much combining the two, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not only do you have a source of Nemesis interrupt, some shenanigans with Nemesis I think is always important. You need this, but combining that with high HP, so it's sort of like having a backup plan, right? So say your Nemesis doesn't proc or whatever. If the rest of your team is squishy, then you're just dead. But if you have your Nemesis unit plus like three other like heavy HP, heavy defense, like high effective HP units, then even if the Nemesis doesn't proc, you still have that plan B that you're not going to die, that you have a chance to counterattack. Gotcha. And I think that's probably the best.
Gotcha. Right on. And then, in addition to those 80s, you're going to see, as you climb up, and fight different things, you'll see a lot of different combinations out there that people utilize. Some of these combinations are some, units that you have or whatnot.
Right.
As an endgame player, you can obviously kind of get, what people are trying to do with their arena defense, but every so often people kind of throw you, a curveball, whatnot. Do you feel it is valuable to copy one's AD, or should you try to just constantly be unique, changing it up every couple of weeks? What do you think?
I think at the top end of arena, when you're like in Guardian 2, Guardian 3, copying AD is probably one of the worst things you can do.
Nice.
Well, I say that because if you look at the people who do well, so for example, Fwa, right? Fwa is probably the best example of this, actually. Fwa will change his AD like every week, and it might not be obvious to like people, right? So you might have the same 4 units, but the runes will be completely different. One week he'll use like double Nemesis Will on like Praha. The next week he'll use like triple Nemesis and with like a slot 6 like resist rune or something. So he's constantly changing things up, and that makes you so much more dangerous. That makes you more dangerous. Sorry, because if you are copying an AD, or if you're using the same AD, let's say on week 1, 10 people hit this AD, and then they're like, okay, I know how to beat this AD. Right. And then on week 2, you're still using the same AD. So those same 10 people still know how to beat you. But now there's like 10 other people who are like, oh, I know how to fight this AD. By week 3, you're getting like destroyed by like 30 people.
Right.
So if you're copying someone's AD, you're never going to be able to have unless your runes are like just straight up like way better than theirs, in general, you're not going to be able to have the same success as the person who originally made the AD, right?
Gotcha.
Because that's just the nature of the world works, right? If you're doing it slower, if you're doing it second, then you're not going to have the same success.
If you're not first, you're last, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, so let's take a look at this. We talked about so many different things. I think some of the things that I'd love to kind of finish off the videos with is the concept of like underrated and overlooked aspects of either units, runes, or like what we're talking about when it comes to arena. In your opinion, what are some of the biggest underrated concepts that people constantly forget about that they should consider when trying to be a top end player?
Okay, so as talked about earlier, I think cleansers are making their way back. Especially against the speed teams, you bring a cleanser with really high resist, and then you focus on having one super threat, such as Alicia or Zyros, and that's how you get your monsters to be safe, but that's how you counterattack with the cleanser. So I think cleansers are really, really strong right now. I know some people like to hit Water Fairy King with those teams, the cleanser teams. So it's definitely shows you that you can still move second and be safe. I think another thing that's not considered enough is having HP on your nukers. So I noticed this first when I went on to Hypnotic Nyx Island, and like his Tashar, which is rune like attack or damage attack, it's like plus 10k HP or something ridiculous. Like why would you ever need that much HP on a Tashar? But then if you think about it, if you don't kill everyone on turn one, having that extra bulk, having the extra tankiness, just can save your life in so many situations. And as you said, losing a fight could make your rank plummet. So I think investing in a little bit of HP, investing in a little bit of defense on your squishies is definitely the right way to go if you want to overall have a consistently successful AO. I think right now, for people who use Lucians and like Lucian variants, I think quite a few people are considering bringing in the Nat4 speed leads, because for the most part, Bernard can't compete with speed lead plus Orion. Okay, so, but at the same time, a lot of people don't have like the really, really good speed leads like Sierra, Water Fairy King, Faye, for example. So people are looking into, stuff like Shimite, stuff like Azaria, maybe like Tyron, something like a Rochi, for example, like the single Lucian plus Konamiya team or whatever. I think those are making a comeback, and because they're not useful. They're not useless units. I mean, right? Azaria does significant damage. Shimite does significant damage, and that could be very, very helpful when you're fighting a Water Fairy team comp. And presumably that's what they're used for, anyways, right?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Tyron. I miss Tyron. I still remember when I was playing around with him, and everyone was like, "Dude, Tyron's old school. Like, he's 2000." I'm like, "Dude, I'm like having not just in arena, but I'm having so much fun in Guild Wars." I used to make a troll team with Tyron, Orion, and Veramos, and that was my Guild Guild War defense.
Right.
And it killed it. People were just like, "What the heck?" He's solid. Good. His kit is so good. His kit is so good.
His kit is really good, but I think people are just, I don't know, too old school for them, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not premium enough for them.
Right.
So yeah, Tyron's definitely another option. Like especially against like fire units. If you use like Lucian, Bernard, Megan, Tyron kind of rounds that up, because like even if they have like a Rakan or something, you have an option against that time, because Tyron does a lot of damage. Yeah. So I think he's pretty good too.
Right on. Let's see.
Lastly, I think this is probably like this is my self shout out for Julie. I think Julie is like amazing. Julie is actually so good. She hits so hard. She doesn't hit as hard as Lucian, obviously, but it's pretty close. Like pretty often, my Julie will be able to one shot Pernas with her third skill without armor break, because it just does that much damage. And I don't think mine is ruined like super heavy damage, but Julie is amazing. Her first skill strips, so you can like strip Rakan's like immunity buff or whatever. Second skill is a nuke and it freezes. Julie is amazing. Build Julie. That's my. There you go. That's a take home message for today. Yeah, build a Julie. Julie is great.
Gotcha. And I did want to add something to that as well. I know that a lot of people were talking. We were talking about Hypnotic Nick and the HP and whatnot.
Right.
I think something that gets thought about or forget about when you're up and coming is the value of the glory shop.
Right.
People are doing what you see right here, right? People are buying stupid mystical scrolls and don't realize that if you start leveling up these towers, you're going to start to see the difference when it comes to your speed versus their speed, or your HP and critical damage versus
Yeah.
theirs. I mean, there's a substantial amount of stats you can provide not only for PvP but for PvE. So please don't overlook it. Even if you're having a hard time with regards to the PvP aspect, use your wings, get the points, and get them upgraded because you have no idea how much it will come
They make
clutch.
such a big difference.
Exactly.
Such
Exactly.
20% HP. That's crazy. That's like having a perpetual, I don't know, like 10 buff, in
There it
arena.
is.
It's really,
Exactly.
really good.
You gotta have it. You gotta have it. So, let me see here. Is there, when it comes to the arena right now, as it stands, I always
Right.
love to ask the question, how do you like it in the sense that is there anything that you would change, for the better, or for the worse, and what would that be? Considering how arena works right now.
If anything, honestly, I would bring back the last fight counts kind of thing. Because right now, I don't know how long ago, but quite a while ago, Comduus changed it so that your last fight, if it goes past like 1 a.m. or 12 a.m. or wherever it is that you're from, it just won't count. And I think that I don't really like that idea. Like, sure, it was kind of disappointing to be like, oh, I'm G3, and then you refresh and it's like, oh, well, I'm G2 because I lost that last fight. But I think if that would not only that would uh, deter a lot of people from using Staal, right? Because for in the last like 5 minutes, everyone switches to Staal,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because oh my god, no one's gonna want to hit me because it's gonna take longer than it is before like the arena closes. So everyone switches to Staal, which I think is kind of lame, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of like abusing the broken system right now. So if you bring back the last fight counts, you'll be able to not only just dissuade people from using Staal for the last 5 minutes, but it would also get rid of a lot of like frustration that comes with, oh my god, if I had like one more second, I could have got this last wing in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the one thing that I would change. But overall, I think it's all right. I think I like where Arena is right now. It's pretty
Good.
good.
Good deal. And so, last but not least, if there was somebody that you feel that would be their information would be instrumental in, the community as far as somebody who's in the Educate and Dominate, who would you recommend to come on board for the next episode and why?
Um, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
That's pretty tough. My two picks would probably be either Fwa or Mav Nasty
Mm-hmm.
because I think they're probably like two of the most innovative players right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Fwa, particularly in Arena, the ADs he crafts and the AOs he chooses to use, they've always impressed me in terms of originality. I think Mav Nasty, shout out to my guildie, he creates like very very interesting guild war defenses that are always successful for God knows what reason. I'm like pretty jealous of that because guild wars is hard. And the way he uses the units in arena defense as well. So I remember like he was up until a few weeks ago before he changed his AD, he was getting like G3 consistently with um Wind Monkey, Orion, I don't even know her name, Fire Assassin,
Oh
and like
God.
Grego or something. Like I'm like, what is Fire Assassin? But he was getting G3 with it. He was
Lexi.
like killing
Lexi.
everybody. I was like, okay.
It's
I don't know how that works, but
Lexi. That's what it is. Lexi.
yeah, Lexi. I was like, I don't even know her name, but you're doing well with her. So I think it's always nice having innovative voices
Mm-hmm.
be able to speak their thoughts to the community.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely I couldn't agree with you more. Now I know that we reached out to Mab Nasty a few months back. I know he respectfully declined because he kind of wanted to lay low. But I'm gonna throw my face in the camera once again, Mr. Mab Nasty. Okay, if you want to come on board to the Educate and Dominate, you're more than welcome to. Yeah, buddy. I'm gonna leave it at that. if there's, I don't. Let's put it so I don't have enough fingers to toes to count how many times over the last year, like how many people have sent me messages from either different guilds or whatnot, asking like, "Hey, do you know how Mav ruined this guy? Do you know how Mav ruined that guy? Like, he just wrecked me. What is that? What is that build? Okay.
Yeah,
So
Mav is crazy.
we can even like block out your unit so no one sees it if that's what you want to hold back on. So I'm down with that. But just to get your information, sir, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. So shout out to Mav Nasty and the Guild Malicious one time. Well, all right, my man. Thank you so much for coming on board and doing this episode. Is there anything you want to give to your viewers, little shout outs or anything like that?
Just shout out to my guild. Shout out to Malicious. Shout out to Proc Ready, my OG guild. Shout out to Pio Daddy. Other than that, I think that's all. Thanks for having me, dude.
Oh,
it was a pleasure.
Not a problem at all. Thank you again so much for hanging out. Again, guys, if you like this style of video, go ahead and smash the like button. We'll be coming back within about a week or so to bring you a take from the one and only, actually, Pio Daddy himself that he just talked about here, Pio Summoner. We're going to be talking a little bit about more in depth in the Dragons B10, focusing on how you can take Once and Love's Operation Mid-Game Educational, Operation Mid-Game Educate Dominate miniseries and take it to the next level when it comes to transitioning into those speed-based comps. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's a pleasure to make this video for you as always. It's your boy Childish and Chuffles with ChildishPlays checking out. Take care, and we will see you next time, guys. We're out.